Okay, hey. Well, we got a magic quarter that's out there someplace. Actually, there's a 250,000 of them, and they say 4th of July on them. So we get to try to find them. So go out and buy yourself a box, $500, and sort through some quarters. Maybe you'll find one. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about evidence. Some people wonder about different evidence. I have had questions about evidence. Some people don't necessarily want to look through all my stuff, and they don't understand some of the things about, well, how are these people manipulating elections and blacklisting? How are they doing all this stuff? Well, they do this with computers a lot, and they do it with the stroke of a pen, and they're going to make a lot of weird laws, and then they're going to basically coerce. They go to these municipal governments and they coerce them. They intimidate them into participating in the various programs. And then these get written up as policies and so-called laws, and they're handed into management, into whatever direction that they go to. And in some cases, it's some new law about who to arrest, when to arrest, how to profile, how to not profile, how to even out your numbers so your profiling is blended, all kinds of different stuff. You name it, it's there. So, and I'm going to tell you, it's been getting harder and harder on people in law enforcement and prosecutorial agencies over the last 25 years, because more and more they see that there are these laws that just keep getting made, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. That's like mass economic sabotage. You're doing on a vast scale. You're destroying people's lives. And we've heard a lot of people mention more and more about this over the last 2 decades. We actually heard Chad talk about a lot of this stuff quite a bit. If you listen in between the lines, he's talking about all these different things. Don't punish real criminals. Close prisons. All these strange restrictions. You can't get rid of people when you find them. They're committing a crime and they're an illegal alien or whatever, And but he'll also talk about a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I'm just going to tell people out and out, you have municipal governments that are being coerced. They're being coerced. They're being told, well, if you want this money package over here to come through, then you need to adopt these overall packages. It's a good deal. And there's a lot of times, lately that you got a lot of cities out there and even counties that are saying, hey, no, we're not going to do that. And some of it's crazy. It's real crazy because, like, they might tell people, like I was reading one here ways back. They told Riverside basically, hey, shut down all these hotels and convert them into homeless housing. And it's like those hotels are connected to people coming in for expos, business expos. And this is where people need to stay. So what they were basically saying is, oh, we want you to kill off all of your business expositions and then use all the hotels that those people would be basically using for homeless, which is exactly what would happen. Nobody'd want to go to a business exposition if all of a sudden they were forced to, you only have to drive 10 miles to get to the nearest hotel now. Where we convert, so they turn it down. They says, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to accept all this money. And it was good money too. But the thing is the long-term damage to business. It was completely absurd, and for the state to even propose such a thing was absolutely ridiculous. So let's get on with some of the hard evidence. I can tell you, let me try some simpler things here, simpler things that are easier to tell. You have people that are Republicans, people that are Democrats, people that are all different belief systems, independents, non-aligned, all kinds of stuff that are involved in law enforcement, for instance. So, I could run into a situation where people see my car or see my name, and all of a sudden the computers have weird stuff on it. There's weird stuff being popped up in the computer mess with this guy. And was ways that blacklisting is done. Different ways where you would make different size letters and all this other stuff. And that's been found in court cases many, many decades back. There's all these different ways to put all these different kind of codes, and they pass the word and this and that. So, so if I get somebody that's harassed me, I've had over the decades, many decades, I've had a lot of weird stuff happen. I've had people like pull me over. You were speeding. No, I was not speeding. Well, you were speeding. Here's your ticket. And I'm like, oh, this is like really screwed up. And I call up the prosecutors and I says, hey man, what is this? I says, well, you're speeding. There's apparently like 2 or 3, I don't know, maybe 5 guys that saw you. And I says, yeah, but that's not what happened. And they're like, well, you don't stand a chance. I says, you couldn't be further from the truth. My friend, you have no idea what's going on. And the guy says, okay, take your shot. What's going on? Okay, look, I'm a brat. My dad was Air Force. I'm a tech nut. And it just so happens that I'm also an asset because I wrote some really interesting things. So I get tracked from outer space, just like other people get tracked. But bottom line is, SAR technology came out in the 70s. And we're way, way, way past the 70s now. And there's no possible way that you can get a conviction on me when I go into court and show the SAR readings of what my actual speed was and show me in my vehicle at that time and place doing what I did, which was nothing wrong. And they're like, well, good luck with that. That's not going to apply. I says, no, I've revealed evidence to you. It's now your obligation to research it, because that's exactly what I'm going to use in court. So you have to understand, if you're going to go into court and lie and have people blatantly lie, and then I bring out and say, hey, Your Honor, here we go. We're doing the SAR. Oh, looky here. That event never occurred. So what does that mean? That means these people are lying. So, so they're going to like, it's not going to happen that way. He says, of course, they'll lie to you. They'll just keep lying. He says, no, of course it's going to happen that way. Let me talk to your supervisor. I want to talk to your boss. Well, you do. Yeah, because I'm also a candidate running for office, and you don't harass candidates this way. You don't treat us this way. I'm going to bring in SAR records and you guys are toast. Nothing you could possibly say is going to match this multi-billion-dollar technology monstrosity that we built that can see a blade of grass and track a dot, which is a human, a box that's a car, a rectangle that's a truck or something. There's just no way. There's no possible way your argument can fly. And I'm telling you that. You need to check it out and see why that is, because I am a candidate and I want to know why these people are harassing me, because then I'm going to turn around and press charges. I'm not going to play games. I'm going to turn around and press charges, And the guy says, well, yeah, good luck with that. I says, you understand what it's going to look like in court when you lay a bunch of arguments out and let me show you basically a form of 3D radiograph of the time and the place. Here we go. Whoop. Yeah, look at this kind of 3D game. Wow, it's a game world, Looks like a game world, but here's the truth. So why is it? Because we've got all these millions of tiny sensors and transmissions echoing every nanosecond. You got to measure the nanoseconds. Don't forget about the nanoseconds. They're very important. Highly important. Nanoseconds, very important. And do you know what a nanosecond is? And the guy says, no, I want to talk to your boss, man. I just turned evidence over to you. And I'm a candidate, and if you're going to harass me, then you're going to be revealed in court. And I'm going to walk out of there scot-free, and your guys are going to be under arrest for harassing a candidate, which is a major felony. So I want to know what's up on this. I want you guys to tell the truth, turn state's evidence. If somebody's coercing, somebody put something bad in the computer, you need to come up with it. You need to come out with it, And it's like, this guy's, in there. Next thing you know, they're going to they do different things. They'll either hang up the phone or they'll end up getting somebody who's a superior and they'll go through it and they're like, okay. And I says, but you got to understand, I'm saying that your intent at this point here, I'm a candidate. I've turned over direct evidence, a direct avenue to get exact information, exact science on the time and place of which you're talking about, so we can see the truth. And if you're not pursuing that, then why would you not be pursuing that? Then you're harassing a candidate. You're wasting my time. And meanwhile, you're lying. You're putting lying statements on government computers. And on top of that, you have these government computers transmitting across state lines. Those are all felonies. This is not a game. I'm not here to play games with you people. You drag me into court. I'm going to bring SAR in. And I'm going to hand you guys' hats. I think you need to come up clean with the truth on it. What's the real reason? You should turn state's evidence and tell me why somebody is messing with computers, more than likely at the state level, targeting me. You need to come up with that. But either way, I'm going to prosecute. I'm also an archiver. I deal with legal research, civil rights, national security, all kinds of stuff. It's a wide array. So, our policy is mandatory prosecution. We just don't let go of people who just blatantly fabricate information at this level, interfere with the process of elections. It's just not going to fly. So needless to say, now you keep in mind, needless to say that since I'm a good law-abiding citizen, that there's been a lot of stuff that's happened that is just not straight concerning various players, and it's a very serious item, very serious. So how does this pan out? Why is this important here now today? I want you to understand this is a trend. It's a trend. It's a trend, okay? And right now, see, I have a lot of friends that, some of them are dead now. I'll tell you, they're dead now. They were deputy sheriffs. They were officers. They were a highway patrol. They were this or that. People. Some of them not the greatest friends, acquaintances, this, that, whatever. But the thing is that we can see eye to eye on a lot of stuff and a lot of information exchange. And I had a really good friend. Robert Nichols, he's dead now. He was a deputy sheriff. He was also in the Air Force. So, he was also in the Air Force, so that, there's this thing about about the decency factor of what's decent and what's not decent, because you got a lot of players out there up in government and they're taking money from foreign countries. They're taking money from foreign interest. And the stuff that the so-called social engineering that they're doing, mass economic sabotage, it has nothing to do with being loyal to the Constitution of the United States. And that's a big difference. That's a major difference. Because we have people that are criminals and national security gets violated, and these people are saying, oh, don't do fingerprints if somebody gets burglarized, even though it's mandatory. See, they change all these laws and aid and abet so people can get away with all kinds of crimes. So where does this go? It ends up going to Newsom. Let me jump forward to Newsom. Newsom just stepped up, and they basically said, well, it's already been policies to do things a certain way, but now we're making it an absolute law. Nobody's allowed to investigate. Nobody's allowed to gather evidence, and you're not allowed to show any evidence. evidence. Anything pertaining to elections, and if you read it, it goes other places as well. So myself as a candidate, they're telling me as a candidate that I'm not allowed to investigate things, that I'm not allowed to collect evidence, that I'm not allowed to disclose evidence to the public. You don't believe me? Go watch it. Go watch it. And if you look, he was targeting many people. He was targeting Chad. It seemed kind of obvious. He was also targeting me. He was targeting me directly. Because some of these people at the state level, they understand who I am. They understand that I've been a major archiver that's kind of been like a ghost for the past 45 years. Actually, probably a little longer than that. And they probably know things about it. They probably know that I was sequestered by a council person to be a special investigator. They probably figured that out by now. So that was for a while, But so the thing is that these people, when they go to lectures in foreign countries that are sponsored by Communist Party activity, and they're picking up material on how to engineer law, on how to deal with destabilizing the Constitution of the United States by basically bringing in mass quantities of immigrants to flood. Again, there's other things. These people are in bed deep on some of this stuff. We're talking major stuff. And you people need to look it up and understand what's going on, because there's people like me that have been gathering big evidence. So when these people attack my campaigns, when I'm running for governor and running for POTUS, that's both a state and a federal election. So it's fascinating that these people at a state level think that for some reason they can try to invent something and claim that a federal candidate has no standing. Yeah, it's kind of, oops, you screwed up on that one, didn't you? So the state's been owing me all this money for years. So let's jump further back. You can go to COVID. Let's go before COVID. We'll go before to COVID. Go before to COVID. Go to Kamala Harris. So I'm a presidential candidate, and she's the AG. But she doesn't want to do her job when somebody invents an erroneous ticket. Here I was at that time, a citizen with my primary residency out of Arkansas. Everything's in the computer, license, insurance, and by the way, Arkansas is different. You have different types. You have taxes on assets, which are different than your tab fees and all these other different stuff. So you have multiple types of taxes that you verify. So in insurance, so I got like 5 verification levels where everything's coming through. Boom, 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 boom. There's the tag on the back of his car. See the serial number on the tag? Yeah, it's right here in the computer. Arkansas says this guy, this guy's master green light all the way around. What is this guy? He just completely fabricates. He just completely ignores the police handbook. He completely ignores multi-state courtesy status laws and stuff. Plus, I'm a candidate. So he fabricates this. But you see, Kamala also wants to be a candidate. She's in motion being a candidate herself for a little bit. So she doesn't want to do her job. She does not want to prosecute this person. So I'm like, hey, first of all, I'm a candidate. You people have invented a bunch of lies, and you have posted it into government computers. And those government computers are sharing these lies across state lines to other government computers. Very serious felonies in conjunction with a candidate. a candidate. I was filed out of Arkansas. So this is a bit of a situation. It's there's a lot of hubbub there. There's a lot of friction, because I was the only candidate to file to run for POTUS out of Arkansas, coming up going into where Obama was running. And, this is actually before Obama was running, but so no, so you run into people and they're like, yeah, man, we're not going to back any candidates in the Democratic Party for the state of Arkansas. And you had people going in there going, he's the only candidate that has basically filed to run in the whole state. The process of election is that people filing in our state are supposed to be considered. This is part of the process. Plus, you had people that are like, well, we're inviting him. I had people inviting me from both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So that ended up having some strange twist in it too, by the way, because you end up having a situation where I ran into this guy at a Target, and I was picking up a new digital tape recorder. It had a USB so I could quickly download the stuff out of the tape recorder. And I was getting it because I was going to do a long trip, and I wanted to make sure that I'd have something that was hands-free, basically, and easy to manipulate so that it would be both legal for me to have and use while I'm driving on the highway. So I had to look around to find the right type of device that would operate the right way and all this other stuff. And, so I'm buying one. There was one at Target. And this guy notices that I've got this folder and all these packs of papers, right? And he says, hey, it says candidate right on there. It says, you're a candidate? He says, yeah, I'm running for president. No. I says, yeah. I says, right here. Look, I just filed this out of Arkansas with a separate, down in the Capitol building. So, yeah, here, take a look. And the guy takes a look at all this. He goes, oh, wow, this is weird. So I'm not going to go into everything that we talked about. And this guy got excited. He was like, hey, man, I'd like to join in on the campaign and, volunteer, this, that, And I says, well, it depends. I mean, if you can get a security rank, you've been in the military before, are you going to check out for like a classified rating? Can you get a security rating? Because I've got some material that's different. It's classified. It's going to end up getting handled in the campaign. And there's certain people that, would be needed to work with things. We also have opening for treasurers right now. I'm just setting up. And this guy's like, yeah, I'm interested in treasurer. And he says, all flying colors, everything will go just fine. Everything's fine. So I'm saying, okay, but I have to check you out. I can't say you're one of mine yet. I can't say that, you're in the car until after, this. So I got to go make a trip into California and I'll be back. It's going to be about 2-3 weeks. It's like, oh, yeah. So he's like, well, can I do anything? I says, well, he says, well, I got to drive a long distance, this and that. And he says, I go by these places. It's not really out of the way. What kind of paperwork would I need to pick up? And I says, well, and I told him, I said, well, you need a certified copy of this. And you could go, matter of fact, you could just go into the Capitol building and talk to him and say, what do you need to do this or that? You can just ask him. I said, oh, great. I'll just do all that and verify everything. So, and I says, okay. I says, but don't do anything else till I get back. Don't talk to any other people, So basically, it was kind of interesting, basically, because I end up going to California. My truck breaks down. I think it was a Mapco Express. I'm at a Mapco Express. Truck stops stranded, and my oil pump's out, and I've got to wait for a part. I'm trying to get a part to come in, and I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm putting all this thickener in to try to get the pressure to work again. And it's really weird too, because I just had a brand new oil pump put in the ride like 3 months previous, brand new, high performance. and it failed. So anyhow, I get a call from a friend of mine, Bob Nichols, and he's like, "Mike, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. Why?" "Well, we just heard that a guy that has a truck like yours just blew away the Democratic leader for the state of Arkansas." And I'm like, "Really? Okay. It doesn't have anything to do with me." And he says, "Yeah, but they said, I just wanted to make sure you're okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I'm like, "Bob," and he goes, "What? How could I shoot somebody when when my 3 guns are in your safe?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." Yeah, yeah, like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So it was kind of funny that way, because at the time, but later on, it occurred to me. Later on, I found out when I got to California that I got a chance to review more information. I find out that it was that guy. That guy apparently had gone down to the state capitol, and he verified, certified materials that I was a candidate. And he went into the Democratic headquarters, and which he wanted me to run as a Democrat, and he went in there, and I guess it didn't go so well. They apparently did the wrong things, said the wrong things. I had talked to some of them once before about that I was registering to run for president. And they go, "Well, yeah, but you're not a communist. We can't back you." So if he walked in there and they said something like that, that might have just popped that guy's fuse. He might all of a sudden looked around and found himself in fairyland. Here he was like, "Wow, hurrah, we'll get a Democratic candidate again out of Arkansas. Lightning can strike twice, right?" And all of a sudden he's in shock because he's surrounded by people that are apparently communist, involved in treasonous activity. Not to mention, he's like, "Well, I just verified he's the only candidate filed to run in the whole state. He is the only candidate. What's going on here?" And because I was an early filing on that. And I filed before other people even declared. And, so I guess this guy, it did not click so well with this guy. And so I guess he went out in the truck and he flipped. He's like, "I don't understand." He thought he was going to end up getting a job, and instead he runs into a bunch of people that are apparently communists committing treason in the country. So he goes out to his truck and gets a gun and decides that since he was the only person alone witnessing their treasonous activity, that, in the name of protecting the Constitution of the United States and the process of elections, that the only choice was to blow the guy away. I mean, this is what I'm assuming. So, so a guy that apparently is a maniac actually might have been a hero. An unsung hero that nobody knew about, that was confronted by people that were Communist Party people, overthrowing part of the Democratic Party. I don't know. I mean, he might have walked in and overheard something that was far worse. But the thing is, this guy was, he was going to be a volunteer, and then he's going to end up getting a job as one of the treasurers. He was going to be moving up. He was going to end up upgrading his life, and runs into some kind of strange communist brick wall or something. That's the only thing I can figure. I mean, for somebody to just snap that bad, that's about the only thing I can figure. So there's bad feelings over that. So there's Democrats, for instance, they don't like me. They don't like me because I end up coming up with that. A lot of them didn't like me. I had people hooking stuff up with the archive. There's nothing like people coming up with tapes and recordings of judges committing felonies, of various people in government committing felonies. And all of a sudden there's recordings of them lying and committing felonies. And on top of that, they're falsely putting people in prison. And then they end up getting caught on tape. So lots of evidence in the archive. And there's a lot of people, they got reasons to dislike me. So running a universal type, an omnibus type archive is complicated in many ways because it's nonprofit. And some people don't understand certain aspects of doing a fair and unbiased archive. And some people don't think archives are important. They don't think it's important to save artifacts, to save old documents. They don't think it's important to protect constitutional material and writing and all this historical stuff. There's all this stuff with the archive. There's artifacts 900 years old. There's a great eye. And a lot of people, they don't even know what that is. A great seal of the Americas. And people, they don't even know what that is. But it's a very historic type of basically universal Mason symbol. Anyhow, so when you find out more about things and you understand that these people in Sacramento are paranoid, they are paranoid about a lot of things because there's a lot of other people that have evidence that's important. I'm serious. So when you have guys like me that have incredible evidence and then Julie Su blacklists me, they order all the business stuff shut down and they blacklist a campaign, a candidate, an archive that has national security information when they keep lying and falsely inventing all these records and putting them in computers and spreading them all over the place. Those are attacks upon a candidate's camp. Those are major United States constitutional article violations. It disqualifies those parties. Newsom's disqualified. Julie Su pointed, Newsom's disqualified. Kamala Harris disqualified. Shirley Weber disqualified. Rob Bonta disqualified. So to understand more of this evidence situation, it's big. It's big. And you have to understand something. I've had people walk up and say, "Well, yeah, why don't we prosecute them?" And then you just step aside and you book somebody else. I says, "I don't think you understand." They go, "Understand what?" The evidence is proprietary. They're disqualified because of article violations, which means that I, as a candidate, succeed. That means I'm the governor. I'm supposed to be the governor, but these people have involved themselves in a coup. Literally a coup. They've taken over so many areas and divisions of government, and they are in rebellion. So collectively, all together, these people have committed a coup. They have rigged elections in ways that many of you people can't conceive. If you're going to create a sanctuary city, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to basically spend 35 years packing people and helping to sort people to get them in the country. You're going to have people like Julie Su hire 16,000 people and have special lines, no hablo English. And you're going to sit there and screen people who to give money to. What are you going to end up with? You're going to screen, would she, I put the question to you, would she deliberately screen people that would be communist or socialist? So she's paying people that are not citizens to be soldier voters, to come into the country, to link up in sanctuary cities, to end up becoming citizens and voters. What kind of election fraud is this? What are the numbers like? This is traceable. This is mind-boggling. So my research, of course my research is valuable. I get to some of the deepest ends of the truth about what people are doing. And it's important. Because I'm one of these people with a super high IQ, but still I have people doxing me, getting violent, shooting at me. And when I tried to tell people about this years ago, they couldn't believe it. They're like, oh, no, there's no violence associated with election or politics. Oh, that's ridiculous. That all went extinct 35 years ago. Well, what's going on with ICE right now? 8,000% increase in violence against ICE officers. People running around saying, oh, we want to ban ICE. We want unlimited numbers of people to be able to come into the country. Unlimited numbers. So, yeah, just invite 4 billion people into the country that are socialists and communists, that are diabolically opposing the Constitution of the United States to overthrow it. I mean, think about it. It's the ultimate deal. They're poor. Yeah, we're poor. We go there. We just vote for all the people that are going to go uptown and jack the rich people and steal all the money and tax everybody else along the way. We're going to be the winners every way around it. We have nothing. Therefore, nothing to lose. It's an ultimate win-win deal for us. This is the math. This is the tactical table reality. The real tactical table. So if you wonder if you don't see that the way I'm speaking about evidence holds true quarter, then maybe you ought to spend some time and go look for a magic quarter.